Thank you all for coming to my talk on Project Pythia with MyST MD, or supporting geoscientific Python education. This talk could also be called Jupyter Book 2 User Story, or How to Solve Climate Change with Jupyter. A little bit about myself. My name is Julia Kent. I'm originally from upstate New York, where I studied optical physics and atmospheric and oceanic sciences, specifically the hyperspectral remote sensing for cloud microphysical retrievals. And for the last 7 years, I have been an open source software engineer at the National Center for Atmospheric Research, which means that I work one-on-one with scientists to improve their Python workflows for better parallelization and reproducibility. So first, let's set the stage a little bit. So why do we need open source scientific Python education? On top of all the other software challenges many people in this room are aware of, Earth data is unique in that, well, there's a lot of it. There's terabytes of it that might be used in a single research paper. I think only advertising rivals us for the size of our data sets. And we work on a globe, so many of you might think, oh, easy, lat-long grid. No, if you do that, you have way too much data at the poles, which is not where most people live. So there's multiple different standards on how to work with your data and what type of grids to use. There's also different standards for your calendars. Most models don't have leap years. They also, most of them don't have a 28-day February or a 31-day January. It's kind of all over the place, and you have to know how to interpolate in time, in space, in your brain, in the computer. And so out of that comes the Pangeo community. Now, many people in the Pangeo community maintain tools. Some are connected to Jupyter here. They promote tools, they test tools, they use them, but first and foremost, it is a community. And that community wants to get people up to speed where they can hopefully contribute as well. But the road to get there is not easy, especially in Python. There are so many libraries, people don't know where to start, which ones to use. Maybe they write some code, but they are not comfortable sharing it with the broader community, so it's just sent as an email attachment to people in their lab group and nobody else. And so we want to help people slay Python. So for those who are interested in a little light Greek mythology, Pythia is the oracle of Delphi, and she gives advice to Hercules on how to slay the Python, or the Hydra of Delphi. And so we're trying to help you tackle this multi-headed beast. So we can have open science, open software, transparent, accessible, reproducible, and encourage collaboration, because Earth science affects all of us. And if we don't hoard our solutions, hopefully we can help all of us a little bit faster. So Pythia has 3 main pillars, as we say. We start out with our portal, which is now all built with MyST MD. Has information on how to get involved, to learn more about us, things like that. The next tier is our Foundations book, which is a one giant Jupyter book, now built with Jupyter Book 2, that we also split into 2 kind of pieces. One is foundational skills, so that covers things like how to work in Jupyter versus a terminal, how to contribute to GitHub. And then on top of that, we go deeper into specific packages, from your first import NumPy as NP to how to use Xarray, which, if you're not familiar with Xarray, I love it and will gladly sing its accolades later, but I am on a time limit. And then building on top of the foundations is we have several other Jupyter books that are more niche to specific scientific fields. So maybe it's just for sea ice researchers or people who work with radar data, and the cookbook will be more specific to what they do and can cross-reference the material in the Foundations book. And all of these resources, the Foundations and each of the cookbooks, are launchable on the 2I2C Jupyter Hub. So we are just swimming in the Jupyter ecosystem, and you can interact with, edit, change the code as you see best for your uses. We have several cook-offs, which is what we call our cookbook hackathons. We love puns in our group, especially pithy puns. So this is our picture from 2024, where we were first introduced to the idea of MyST MD and Jupyter Book 2, and we began our transition over. And one last piece of kind of background to set the stage for this is our impact and our audience. So our audience is hopefully all earth scientists or people interested in earth science. We have several professors I'm aware of that use our Foundations textbook for their classroom and things like that. And because of that, we're happy that we have 80,000 unique users on Foundations, many more page views, with our most popular being how to use Cartopy. If you're not familiar with that, it's like a map-specific plotting library, which is integral to doing data visualization on a sphere. Pandas, X-ray, and our most popular cookbooks are on radar and advanced visualization techniques. So, mystification. Hopefully you don't get drowsy during this talk. So there were kind of 4 main motivations that led us to make the switch, which I will go into more depth in the next slides. But sustainability, staying on the leading edge of best practices, improving our cookbooks, and cross-pollination with our core developers of the MyST MD and Jupyter Book teams. So in terms of sustainability, this is probably the heaviest hitter. We had a bespoke Pythia Sphinx theme, which, as many of you in open source land know, sometimes people join and sometimes people leave your project. And if it is siloed, you kind of lose the ability for new contributors to edit it, to work with it, to fix things when things break, and things did break. Since we launched the project in 2020, some default browser settings with light and dark mode started interacting kind of weirdly with the theme we built. So if you have a light and a dark Jupyter theme and a light and a dark Chrome theme, you have like 4 different combinations of light and dark that I was trying to manually chase down, and we would have places on pages I forgot to look at that had black on black text or white on white and things like that. So for that reason, we decided to keep with the default MyST theme as we move forward. It looks clean, it looks great. Why make our lives and the lives of people who join the project after us more complicated? Another reason is repository sprawl. So this summer, I counted 75 plus repositories in our organization. So again, every single cookbook is its own repository, and that is necessary because it's launchable on Jupyter Hub. It needs to have its own environment file so people can interact with it. And that meant that while there were things that in our theme repository I could edit and the changes would cascade down, there were other things such as the configuration file, which is what was home to your navbar links, your footer links, things like that, that I would have to go and open a lot of pull requests with a very tiny, like 1-line commit, which was fun, I assure you. And MyST promised this great feature called MyST Extends, which is working swimmingly. So here's proof. Now we have 91 repositories. I just didn't want you to think I was lying. And here is an example of using MyST Extend. So in one place, we have our MyST configuration files, and then all of the other cookbooks can just point to it. And so I'm able to update things much more quickly if we need to. And we want to follow best practices. So as an open source project that in turn teaches people open source software, we should be doing what the open source community is moving towards with enthusiasm. So not only is our site content useful, but the site itself serves as a blueprint for other people wanting to build similar projects. I already talked to somebody today who told me they looked at our infrastructure to help transition their stuff over to Jupyter Book 2 since the release this Monday, which is very exciting. And we want to make cookbooks better. So some new new features that we've leveraged are embedding content, automating bibliographies, and making the contribution pipeline easier. Also for good cross-referencing. So again, we have our foundations and chapters that build on top of each other, and then we have cookbooks that the broader community can build and hopefully point back to our foundations content, and being able to do that in a seamless, kind of pretty way is great. And it's been a joy working with the 2I2C, with CurveNote, with MyST Jupyter developers, and if you get to be an early adopter, your voice feels heard, and features that you're looking for hopefully can not stay in the low priority issue tagging. So I'm gonna show you some before and after pictures and then talk to you about the process of getting to that after. So here's what our portal used to look like, and here's what it looks like now. And again, I didn't take a screenshot of the messy dark mode. I maybe had too much pride for that. Here's what our cookbooks gallery used to look like, and here it is now. I'm actively working on a plugin to hopefully edit the gallery a little bit, but again, not too much because there might be someone looking at it after me. And here's our portal and the new portal. It's very clean, it's bright, we don't have to tinker with the nav bar and all that stuff quite as much. So why did we do this? How did we get to yes? I would say that having all the conversations to solidify that we want to do this probably took more time than actually doing it, but it does take work to get to a future that hopefully you have to do less work. So initially we stood up a separate GitHub organization that served as our sandbox, where we would transition just a few cookbooks and kind of demo what it looked like and test, make sure we could meet the requirements that we had. And we decided that we wanted to have everything switched over before our hackathon this summer, which was in August. A couple of reasons for this. More stability. Imagine working on a hackathon and producing something and you're proud of it, and then the next week I come in with a big pull request and make it look completely different. We also, again, there were so many repositories to change. All these new repositories built during the cookbook, I would have had to transition those as well. And we decided to transition in progress cookbooks. So there were several cookbooks that people have been working on that aren't published because for whatever reason, the authors, maybe the data access isn't quite there. We try to help shepherd people along the way, but we wanted to make sure that those cookbooks were also transitioned, so if people came to the hackathon to continue progress on an existing one, they were in the same playing field as everybody else. So there were some actions that we had to update upstream pretty much at that time. You couldn't call Jupyter Book Build anymore because we were calling MyST Book because Jupyter Book 2 wasn't released. I don't think this would be necessary if you had to do this now, because Jupyter Book should just point to Jupyter Book 2. And then in every repository, this is roughly all the files that had to be changed. So I had to generate our misconfiguration file, which now I believe if you call Jupyter Book, it has an auto convert that kind of walks you through the steps to do this. We had a lot of stale code that we don't like stale code. We like to delete it, but we had to kind of figure out which files we didn't need anymore. And then there were actions that had to be updated to point to the new actions. Our README files were slightly more strict than they were before in that you have to have a title before your title image, so those had to be updated. Git ignore files that didn't exist, and your environment it now needed to have MyST MD in it in every cookbook. And there were some other miscellaneous things we had to track down, like an admonition that was using Sphinx syntax, it would need to be updated. And all the URLs were used to end in .html, and they don't anymore, which we could have set up link forwarding, but if I saw them, I would just fix the links. So we had a sprint day, and we had a lot of great people involved in coming together to pull the lever on the same day. Basically, we're opening a lot of pull requests. We want them to be reviewed. Please clear your calendar. And even old cookbooks that we had already mystified still needed to be touched up because they were pointing to action paths that were in the sandbox organization. So just on one day, I personally had 815 commits, and the next day was almost 200. I found it easier to actually have a million tabs open and find the file in all of them and delete it, because otherwise we had upstream in 2 different organizations and local, and it was just slightly faster to work in this slightly messier way, honestly. And we kept spreadsheets. I guess if you say everything points to a spreadsheet or a Jupyter notebook. We used 2 spreadsheets to keep track of our progress. So one to keep track of when things had been transitioned to MyST, and then another one when we wanted to pull everything from MyST from our sandbox organization back into our main published site and whether or not it was deploying as planned. And I want to do a huge thank you, shout out to the MyST Markdown team. We could not have completed the process so rapidly without responses from them. I think there were some bugs and some features that were being fixed and iterated during the sprint day. So it was really a day of much activity. And there was a final kind of push after the sprint day before the cook-off in August. And one thing I want to highlight is mistakes were made. I forgot to add the Google Analytics tag to the new configuration files. And so we have about a month of nobody visiting our site. But previously, if I were to have made this mistake, I would have had to add that tag to every repository's configuration file, when now I could add one tag to the main configuration file that everything's extending, and it just cascaded down. And so there were 3 different tags, and so in the portal and foundations, I just overwrote it. And so it was 3 commits, and it just, I made a mistake, and in fixing it, showed the value of MyST and extends for our use case. We also had to quickly update our contribution guides before the event and track down any more broken links that maybe were hiding away. And our cook-off, I would say, was a big success. So we had 4 days, we had 68 registrants, and we had 12 breakout groups. And to give you an idea of the nature of the cookbooks, and maybe if you have some work you would like to turn into a cookbooks, we had everything from an AI teammate working in your Jupyter environment to a cloud-optimized pipeline for Landsat sea surface temperature, MPAS and JEDI data, which are specific to, I believe, ocean data. Okay. And Numba, which is a library for unstructured grids that helps with parallel computing with unstructured grids. So just a great breadth of projects here. I have two testimonials I would like to share. So Max worked on an ARM field site cookbook, which is a lot of radar data. And he said that the MyST infrastructure made open source quick and easy, instant reproducible Jupyter book environments, powered by fast builds and seamless Jupyter Hub integration, reduced the time to science, which is exactly what we want to hear. Harsha worked on OSDF, which is the Open Science Data Federation. And they worked on, they brought together a lot of different scientists with existing work. And they said that the cookbook template that we provide on top of the MyST Markdown helped turn these notebooks into coherent cookbooks with only a small learning curve. And then he liked that the MyST's permissive error handling allowed them to render the cookbook even though there were still issues, which is something that I will touch on in a little bit later, that we are trying to maybe not do that, but he liked it, so. And just some more Jupyter content. 78% of our participants worked on the 2I2C Jupyter Hub the whole time, and everyone is in the positive half of whether or not they would recommend it. We actually had one group provide some feedback up to Jupyter Hub in a feature that's already being worked on for sharing the image of like your environment kernel, because the environments were taking a while to resolve, and you would have to like kind of, we found it easier to share the code for that environment instead of having it rebuilt for each person every day. And so what work is left? There's still work that we have to do. There's features that we are waiting and hopefully going to be alerted if they're incorporated into Jupyter Book 2. And without peering too closely at it, I just wanted to show you that we have many issues open. Okay, so this is referencing kind of what Harsher said that he liked, is we used to, in our cookbook gallery, you could quickly see if a cookbook was still building or not. And then a member from the Pythia team would maybe go in and see, why isn't this building anymore? Oh, this environment file, the way it's resolving since the release of this package, and we would try to fix it and maintain it and improve that. But since things are still building and executing, even with failing cells, it's a little harder to know which notebooks need our attention. Last week I saw that there's, I don't know if this was around the whole time, but there was this strict keyword to build our notebooks, which would cause it to fail, which is good because we want to know when things fail instead of having them just silently fail. And again, I said we're many websites in a trench coat pretending to be one. So we currently have 25 published cookbooks. We have 2 different galleries, our portal and our foundations. The default behavior is for external links to open in a new tab, but internal links to stay the same. So we have a lot of things that are in our minds internal, but are being registered as external. So you end up with a lot of tabs, which is maybe not super important, but slightly annoying. And we're working on improving our footer. So this is what our footer used to look like, and here's what it currently looks like in terms of extending specifically the footer site parts. And we are still developing kind of our ideal footer. MyST makes a lot of things easier for you. And sometimes if you just want to grab the HTML and CSS, though, things are slightly more abstracted or resistant. And gallery filtering. So we have 91 resources in our resource gallery and 25 cookbooks in our cookbook gallery. And we have filtering that lets you pick Python packages you're interested, specific domains within Earth Scientists and things like that. Currently, the filtering is not working. I'm actively developing a plugin to improve this. And hopefully, this MyST plugins in progress when this turns green, hopefully we'll run ahead. Okay. And I believe this is the last thing, which is blog functionality. So we do have a blog that we write, and maybe we should write a little bit more frequently. But we have to manually put the table of contents in chronological order. And perhaps many people in this room just speak up if it's something you would hope to see on your Jupyter book, because yeah, because then there might be value in kind of automating it for everybody instead of our own bespoke solution. So in summary, there were some headaches based on our specific use case with Jupyter Book 1 and Sphinx. We completed the lion's share of this work this summer, and there's still more work to be done and hopefully some updates to come. So I would like to thank everyone who participated in our MyST transition sprint. There are many more faces that should be on this slide who've been involved in Project Pythia over the years or were involved at some stage. Do you now have a project that needs to turn into Jupyter Book 2 as of Monday? You can talk to me. Do you have a tool that you think maybe could leverage our existing audience and be in our gallery? Also, would love to hear from you. We have open community meetings. Please come if you're interested. November 18th is our next one. And we are having our next hackathon. We just locked in the dates for June 15th to 18th. So thank you all so much for coming, and I hope you're enjoying the conference so far. Thank you.